Welcome, everyone. I'm Leslie Dollinger, the director of the library, and I welcome you here this afternoon. And I thank you all for taking the time to spend with us. And thank you to also the people on Zoom. Um, I'm joined tonight by our amazing staff and trustees to talk about the library, to answer any and all questions that you have about programming, operations, funding, and anything else that might come to mind. This is an informal open Q&A, so I hope to hear from as many as you as possible with questions. And just a few housekeeping things when we get started. We have a moderator here tonight, Kate Bachman. So thank you, Kate. She's our volunteer communication strategist. So we're really happy that she's joining us here. And she'll be coming around the room with a mic, and mostly the mic, not necessarily for the people in the room to hear each other, but also for people on Zoom. So please raise your hand if you have a question and she'll come around with the mic. And for those on Zoom, please type your question into the Zoom chat and we'll make sure it gets answered in with the questions on Zoom. And then also the Q&A is being recorded so we can make the content available to everyone who couldn't attend the meeting. And then finally, there may be numbers that we want to share with you, all kinds of statistics. It's going to be hard to get to all that necessarily nitty-gritty here this evening, but we will make that available and share that with you. After the meeting, we're putting together like a FAQ, and we'll have some of those numbers in there for anyone that's interested. So, okay, so we're going to get started, and I'm going to pass it over to Kate, who's going to start us off. So thank you, Kate.
Yeah, thank you, Leslie. So yes, we do have a mic. There are mics in the ceiling so people can hear you, but if you want a little amp lift, I'll come get you. Before we get going, I do want everyone on the panel here to introduce themselves so you know where to direct the questions. So you met Leslie, our awesome executive director. So let's start with Carl.
Hello, I'm Carl Albrecht. I'm the president of the Board of Trustees.
All right, let's get that online. Anthony.
Hi, I'm Anthony Jameson. I am the treasurer.
He can answer all your money questions. All right, Elizabeth.
Elizabeth Manning. I'm the assistant director and also a Willett trustee.
Elizabeth is your go-to person for any sort of day-to-day operations, staffing details, technical programs, like that. Samantha.
I'm Samantha Ricker. I'm the development director, so I handle all the fundraising efforts at the library.
So, and then
I am Hannah Lackoff. I'm the program and outreach manager.
yeah, so any and all program stuff directed via Hannah. Before we get going in the room, I did have a couple questions coming through email, so we're going to start with those, and then just give me a wave. We'll check in with Zoom too, and then we'll get going. All right, the first question that came in, kind of a broad one. Anthony, you can start with this. Could you explain in more detail how the library is funded?
Sure. So that's a
Just a softball question.
So the way the library is funded is a couple of ways. So it's through, as you know, the municipal contributions. It's through annual donations from community members, and then it's through our endowment. So we take a draw from our endowment each year, and that helps to support the operations of the library. That's sort of the high level. We could go deeper, but
yeah. And if you do have a follow-up question, that's fine. All right. The other question we had coming through email in advance was, Hannah, I'm gonna have you answer this question. Mm-hmm. What are some of the programs the library offer that people might not know about? So stuff that's not common or maybe underutilized.
Sure, yeah, so everybody probably knows about story times and book groups and all of the classic library things, but we offer so many programs. This year we had 700 and something. It's an unbelievable amount, and that's just programs that we count like a story time or a book club where people come in and we count their attendance, we count how many programs, but we have so many other things going on all the time, sort of behind the scenes a little bit. One of my favorite ones is the Museum and Parks Pass program. And with your library card, you are granted access to a handful of local museums and parks. You check out the pass like you would a book. We have Coastal Maine Botanical Gardens, we have the Chocolate Church, the Maine State Parks, we have the Bath Skate Park, Maine Maritime Museum. We have a lot of them. It's really cool, totally free. Along the same lines, we have our Library of Things where you can check out an actual thing, be it a tool, an American Girl doll for the kids. We've got a lot of technology in there. And some things like mobility kits. We have a lot of lawn games. I would say take a look on your way out, but they're all checked out because it's summer and everyone's excited to check out lawn games. And then we also have spaces like this one. You can book this space. We've also got a small study room downstairs. We've got 2 pods. We get a lot of community groups. We get people who are taking telehealth calls, people who are doing supervised visits, small business owners, people doing meetings, crafters meet up in that small group, and we have a lot of remote workers using those as well. And those are just open to anyone to book. We also have AARP Tax Aid does a volunteer tax aid prep every year here, and they've been doing it for years and years and years. I think it was 2 years ago, we had the third highest usage in the whole state here at our location. It's totally free, open to anyone. People just come and sign up for a slot to get their taxes done for free ahead of tax season. It's really amazing. It's a huge service. On a smaller scale, we also have, I'm just gonna talk about 2 more real quick. Our home delivery program, we deliver books and other items to people who, for whatever reason, can't get to us, who are homebound. And that's a service that runs in cooperation with volunteers and staff to get these people their books. And the people in this program are such huge readers. They don't just get a book every 2 weeks. They get stacks and stacks of books. They have lists of things they've already read. It's really amazing. So we're bringing the library to them. And if people need more, they can come to us. And we have a service called Book a Librarian, which is exactly what it sounds. You can book one of our reference librarians for help with, we get a lot of tech help in this program. So something that is not just a quick question that you can ask at the desk, something like, how do I set up my email? My kids gave me this new tablet for Christmas and I don't know how to use it. All kinds of stuff like that. And Elizabeth is in charge of that program. Did you have anything to add?
That is a great, but we also do consumer research, health research, and you sit down for over an hour working with a librarian one-on-one. It's a wonderful service. Yeah.
And you teach my parents how to use Spotify.
Yes.
So I don't have to. I'm kidding. I love them. All right. We'll open it up to questions. Who wants to ask the first one?
Can you tell us some other types of subjects that people have booked a librarian for?
Sure, book a librarian is wide open. Really, you can book a librarian for anything. We have people that search for jobs online, need help filling out applications, how to learn a foreign language, tools that you can use online. We do have foreign language discussion groups too, so they can come in, we can give them some resources and then point them to people that they can practice their language with. Book a librarian, we have people that come in that are small business owners and want to learn how to create flyers or coupons or any kind of promotional material, and you sit down and work with them.
If there was a subject you were interested in, would one of these librarians perhaps help you, identify a list of resources that would?
Absolutely. So genealogy is a very popular one. We do have an archivist who has local genealogical house research, another very popular one. People come in and they want to get the house history. It's pretty wide open.
How do you get this service known? I mean, I've come to the library for a while and I was not aware of this at all. Where is it posted?
That's a good
It's on
question.
our website because you have to you can go onto the website and read about it and also book it right then. Like you can.
Yeah.
But if you didn't know about it,
If you didn't know about it.
I wasn't aware of it and it was like, well, that's very interesting.
I'd say the biggest way that we promote that particular service is by word of mouth. So if somebody came to the reference desk and said, can you help my parents learn Spotify? That person would probably say, that sounds like a really big project. I can't do that right now, but let me help you book did you know we have this service? We can
Yeah.
help you book a time in the future. That's the biggest way we get the word out about that one.
Under the services tab on the website, or is it not?
It's there.
It's its own tab.
Yeah, it's
right?
its own, it's on the website, but she was asking about in the library itself, yeah.
Yeah, and the same thing with the home delivery and other items or library of things. I knew that Curtis did it. I didn't know that it was done here.
So we've actually had it here for more than a decade, but we didn't used to call it the Library of Things, so it was sort of not as clear. We recently, just in February, we rebranded it to Library of Things. We moved it, you can see it when you leave. It's between the reference desk and the circ desk in that little hallway. There's two big shelves and you can see the items from the adult collection on either side. That's what I was referring to when I said a lot of it's empty right now because the lawn games are taken out. We also have some bookmarks. I put some on that back table that have a list of, not all of them, but a lot of them. And it's on our website too. It has its own page.
And one thing I'll just add to, we have a weekly e-newsletter. If you have an email address and are interested in getting updates, that's how you'll hear even more about
And
all
I
of
do
the
get
programs.
that, yes.
You do get that.
I do get that,
Great.
yes.
I guess it's time to put in another blurb about.
Yeah.
Maybe we
Word
could
of mouth is a one way. There may be a variety of other ways to let this information be known.
I can take that as an action item as the comms marketing.
Yeah.
Yes.
I got it. I wrote it down.
Awesome.
The passes that you have, did you have to buy them or do companies donate them?
It's a variety. So the Chocolate Church, for example, that one is donated by the church. It's a partnership. And it's not a pass. It's not like a free pass for just anything. We get 3 passes a month for 2 tickets to programs that they select. So it's like you get like a code and then you'd enter that in. So that one's a great partnership because it really, it's exposure for both organizations. Something like the Coastal Maine Botanical Gardens, we do purchase, but it's at a library rate. What is it, 150
for
or
the
200
year.
for the year? So we're not buying every single person's pass because there's our whole budget right there.
But so how does that work then? If I wanted to go to Coastal Gardens and I'm a member of the library?
You would go to the front desk with your library card and you'd say, I would like to check out the pass for the Coastal Maine Botanical Gardens. And that staff member, we have got a whole calendar of available dates and they would pull it up, get you all set up, set you up with a ticket, and then you get them emailed right to you. And it's just a little code that they scan at the grade. It's great.
I want to follow up on something that was said in our meeting, in the town of Woolwich meeting not too long ago. What about your overdue waivers of overdue books? How is that funded?
So I can connect to this because this is something that it's near and dear to my heart. But so one of the things that libraries were been doing for quite some time now is to remove barriers to borrowing. And so this isn't something, so we have eliminated all fines at the library, and we are not unique in this. This is something that most libraries have now embraced, as you know, and one thing that people had asked, well, you know, if you don't fine, are things going to come in later and later, or you're not? But what's happening is people are returning their things. When we find, people actually then ended up keeping items even longer. They didn't want to pay the fines and then not returning it. So we have not found that by not finding materials aren't being returned, they are. One of the other things that was going on, it was a diminishing revenue source. So we used to get, I think when I first started, we got about $8,000 a year in fines, and it kept going down. One of the reasons is we're part of a library consortium. We're part of Minerva for circulating, and most of other libraries were already eliminating fines. So with that also then eliminated our ability to collect fines on items we didn't owe. So it automatically was sort of out of our control. But the bigger thing is we really did not want just tell somebody they couldn't check out a book because they'd owed $5 on fines. So it was a diminishing revenue source. The first year that we eliminated fines, we did get a grant to cover the costs from the Davenport Trust. But then after that, we just again eliminated it because it would have happened on its own. So it was not a large revenue source at all for the library, but a huge win for the community not to have to pay these fines.
You had a question. Well, I had a comment, which is kind of about what you were talking about. One of the things I recently learned was that you have things that you can check out, the mobility, and also there's memory boxes, I believe. And I have to say that I go to the library website a lot to see what the resources are, but I wouldn't even think to look for that. I was told by that because my mother has dementia. And so when I found out about that, I thought, what an incredible idea and value and resource that is, because the idea of having a memory box from a particular generation was fabulous. So that comment about how do you find out about things, it isn't so much who do you ask, it's how do you even know that you're not seeing it. And so from a PR resource, I feel that's where there is a lack of communication, because I was totally on board, American Girl, Telescope, fabulous, but I never even thought of that. And I think it's wonderful that you have that. And I wish that it was more able to be seen by people who wouldn't even think to. So that's my comment about wonderful, but boy, I wish I'd known.
I think that's constructive feedback.
Yeah, thank you. That's great to hear. Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
So I'm assuming the endowment you're mentioning is only gone into to bring the budget up to balance for the year? Or is it the same amount every year that the endowment is? Sorry, talking the wrong person.
No, that's great. So what we do is we draw 5% of a rolling, is it 12 quarters?
12 quarter.
So it's an average of the last 12 quarters, that balance, we can draw 5% of that balance each year. So we can't draw more than that without a special circumstance and board approval and all that. But 5% is what we generally would draw.
I know it's come up before, well, why don't you take out more when times are tough? Why don't you take out more? And the reason is that you've got a big pile of money and you decide, well, I'm going to take out more. Well, then you have less money that's going to earn money.
Yeah.
And you have a dwindling fund. And if you have a dwindling fund, then you can end up in a situation where there is no endowment anymore. The question comes up all the time. I'm not saying you don't know this, but.
I appreciate that. That's a really good point to make. That has happened to other nonprofits right in our town. And it's happened just recently where that is where they've taken more than a certain percentage. Frankly, generally it's about 4 is what is recommended. We do the 5, but it's working for us because we do 5 over the 12 rolling quarters. It kind of protects us a little bit, but it can happen. And that's why we really, if we do anything more than that, we think long and hard about it, because in order to have that longevity and for the endowment to do its job, you have to leave it there to let it grow.
We have a question on Zoom. This person has asked, they are curious if there were key cost drivers behind the 12% increase in expenses allocated out to the towns.
I can answer that. So we did have a particularly challenging budget process this year because we did have some higher expenses than normal. Some of those are attributed to things like personnel costs. Our health insurance went up 9% this year. We also had building insurance costs that went up 7% this year. We also have a wonderful new HVAC system and building control system, but that also there are maintenance costs associated with that. And of course, contracts for everything like elevator maintenance, preventive maintenance on HVAC, all of that continues to rise. The cost of materials like, books goes up about 5% a year. So all of those things contributed to the reason that we had a little bit larger increase not only in our budget than usual, but also in our request for the towns.
Could you talk a little bit about the difference between the library operations that are funded through municipal assessments versus capital campaign and capital expenditures?
Do you want to answer that? Do you want to answer that?
Yeah, go ahead. So the difference between the two. So I know I have seen a lot of comments about, well, you've raised, X amount of dollars to the capital campaign. Why can't you just spend that? So when we started a capital campaign, we set a project, and that part of that was the HVAC system that Leslie just discussed, and some renovations that we're going to do, and some endowment growth. When a donor is asked to give to that, that is a commitment above and beyond what they would give us normally for their regular fundraising, which goes to the operating, our annual fund. So we can't spend that money elsewhere. When somebody has said, I'm going to give you $25,000 for the capital campaign, then it is restricted funds at that point, and we can only spend it for the capital campaign. Their regular donations, however, if they were to give to the annual fund, that supports our general operating. This year's goal is $155,000. Those are very separate things, and a capital campaign is often just a once-off. Our annual fund is every year. These donors, we have donors who have given longer than our records go, decades and decades. But the capital campaign is a one-time. We're asking you right now, make this one-time gift to this project. We will spend that money on this project.
Well, to me, it's a good thing that we make it clear that there are certain projects in the library that we don't ask taxpayers to fund. I mean, I would not be very happy if my property taxes were paying for, an HVAC, a full HVAC system that I can't afford to put in my house. Mm-hmm. And so it's good to know that you don't do that. Anytime there's a really big project like that, you get voluntary fundraising. It doesn't go to the taxpayers, and I think that's great. But I did want to ask, HVAC maintenance, you don't expect that to continue to be an unusually large expense, do you? It's just, isn't a part of it, but it's barely.
So basically we have it to our building and maintenance line has gone up as a result of all of these things. So it's not gonna go up that much every year now that we've established this new baseline.
Okay.
Right.
Are
there some areas that you have cut funds on? Because all of us are having to cut funds in our own lives. So how has the library found ways that they can cut back on expenses?
So there's a couple ways I can answer that. One thing I will say, which is actually part of our capital campaign, is running an electrical new HVAC. We were reliant on fuel oil. So the HVAC is electricity driven, and that's really pushing up our electrical costs. So one way we're actually cutting is by using campaign funds, special project funds. We put solar on the roof, and we also purchased into a solar farm. So that's actually cutting and reducing our electrical bill as a result. And we're using the campaign funds to help sustain the longevity of the building and the library and to keep our costs down. We also, one of the other things we did, we put in on all new LED lights. Well, I've already noticed a decrease in the number of times I have to call an electric company for a ballast that's gone out. And so those are the kinds of things we're actually seeing that, and we'll really be able to note it over the next couple of years, reduced maintenance costs with these types of systems that are more sustainable.
Well, I'm thinking back to my day when I was on the board, and one of the big issues we had is that Leslie had mentioned the cost of materials go up a lot every year. And unfortunately, in a sense, you're having to cut costs because you can't afford to increase your budget enough to keep up with all of that in some years. So it's almost, in many ways, there's costs that are cut, but there also are costs that you really would want to incur as a functioning library that you just don't, because it would be too expensive.
And I'm glad you brought that up, Marilyn, because that's the other thing. We have not increased materials budgets like we'd like for that very reason, is we haven't been able to afford it. And as a result,
increase what?
with the materials budget collections. And as a result, we're able to buy less and less every year because, as I mentioned before, materials go up about 5% a year with
Yeah,
inflation.
so if you didn't belong to Minerva where you can borrow stuff from other libraries, it might be a really major problem.
We had a hand up.
So so I was also at that town meeting. I'm also a Woolwich resident. And one of the statements that was made was that some of the funding for the library was misappropriated or misused in some way. And obviously there was not that opportunity to respond to that in that meeting, but I'm curious to know how you would have responded. So if a resident makes a comment that they were able to access some of how the library has been funding things through various websites, I suppose, and that they thought the funding wasn't going as it should have been, how would you have responded?
Anthony, that's a good question for you.
No, Leslie actually knows, do you know all the you know what she's talking about, right? The 990, that it was the person who looked at the 990 and a snapshot of operating budget, threw it into AI and asked AI what AI thought of it. And of course, those are two very different documents with two very different periods, two very different rules. And so it said, anomaly. There's no anomaly, because what you really need to look at is what Anthony's going to tell you.
So the first thing that I would say in response to that is we are more than happy to sit down with anybody at any time and go over our operating budget front to back. So better bring a couple hours because it's big. But we have our financial statements done every year. You can go through it and see everything. And we're more than happy to do that with anybody. We might have to group some people together if too many people want to do it because it is an undertaking, but we're happy to do that. One thing I would mention anecdotally when looking at 990s, tax returns are done ever so slightly differently than you would look at financial statements. So things are grouped together a little bit differently. It's not going to give you the picture that you need by just looking at tax returns. Tax returns are done for a certain reason, especially in nonprofits tax returns. They're going to look a little bit different. So I would say that let's look at our full financial statements to get a better picture and then go from there.
Hey, Anthony, correct me if I'm wrong, but I know a little bit about what this comment was. And there was a comment about there's, like $500,000 missing. And I think what was really going on is that it's an amount that is part of, capital or and not part of operating. So it was on the 990, but it wasn't on the operating budget.
Gotcha.
But of course, it will all be together on the financial statement.
Yeah, like I said, you're not going to have, everything isn't going to look exactly, you're not going to get the best picture by looking at one document that way, or even those two. The best thing to do is look at our financial statements, which I think are on the website now. If they're not, they should be, but also we'd be happy to go through them with anybody. That's really the better way to do it. 990s will give you some information, but really not quite enough to get the best picture.
Just to build on your question to make sure we're answering it, if someone did want to do a deeper dive, what is the best way for them to reach out?
I would say to get a hold of Leslie.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then we'd go from there. Yeah, I think that's the best way.
And could part of the response to that sort of question be that you get audited, don't you?
Yeah, yes,
There are
we have a financial
accountability.
review.
So if there was an anomaly,
Yep.
It would be found.
But you know what I liked about that whole thing is it goes to show you another benefit of a library, which is AI will tell you a lot of things that are misleading and confusing. And, if AI tells you something that you're not sure about, you can come to the library.
But yes, to be absolutely clear, we have a CPA firm do a financial review every year. So you're right. If for some reason somebody were doing something nefarious, it would be found. And nobody is, for the record. Nothing is being misappropriated.
Right. We have many checks and balances. We have a finance committee, we have a treasurer, we have a bookkeeper, we have myself. We have so many people involved that are looking at all of these numbers.
And just a follow up to that, one of the comments that was made specifically was from eliminating the late fees, that
the trying to think of the word I want exactly, but they had said that was the endowment had been used to do that. I do not know if that's true, but that was what the claim was. And then that they had said that there would be a better use for the endowment. So can you help us understand a little bit about how endowment is used? I also know happen to be friends with somebody in library sciences, and she mentioned that late fees actually cost the library more to execute than to actually help the library. So I'm wondering if you could speak to that a little bit and how you kind of make these decisions.
I can speak to that a little bit. Yeah, sure. Well, what I would say about that is when we eliminated the late fees, the first year it was a budgeted item, so that we eliminated it. So we did get a grant to cover that budgeted amount. The next year it was absorbed into the operating budget. It really wasn't a large amount. I don't remember it off the top of my head. I don't know if you do. Do you?
When we got the
I'm sorry?
grant, the grant was for $7,000, but it was decreasing by about 50% every year. So we absorbed the few $1,000s that we would have received in fines.
That's what I was
Following
thinking. Was
year,
something
we did
else.
absorb it.
That was totally irrelevant to the endowment, right?
Nothing to do
Yeah.
with the endowment.
No, what I will say again to that is the draw that we take from the endowment is generally prescribed, that 5%. There are times where we may take an extra one if we need to balance the budget, but that really doesn't have much to do with late fees. That amount would not, that doesn't have it.
So it was presented as if they're linked, but they weren't actually linked at all.
No, not linked.
We have some Zoom questions.
Yes, I saw the additional item on the Woolwich warrant requesting an additional $8,500 for offsetting library card costs for folks who cannot afford them. How do fees for cards work? Do the other towns also fund this library card offset?
So the first question is on the warrant. There are 3 articles on the upcoming Woolwich warrant. The first is to elect the moderator. The second is to requesting that the town fund the library at the request that we're asking, which is $80,108. The third article is only if the second article does not pass. So it's not an additional $8,500. If the second article does not pass, then the third article is voted on. And that will be for the town to set aside $8,500 to give to for people to purchase cards that can't afford it. So it's not an $8,500 on top of, it's a separate article should the second one not be funded. So that was the first part of the
The
question.
second one was, how do fees for cards work?
So the fees for cards, basically for a non-resident, we have a fee of $85 annually for the year or $25 for 3 months, which is, oh no, it's 30 now, excuse me, thank you. And that's usually for summer residents that are just here on a limited basis that would like to have access to the library in the summer. And so we include that in our revenue. We sort of look at how much we've raised in non-resident fees in the last year and then budget amount. So that's a revenue stream for us. For those non-resident card holders. And again, there's anybody that lives outside of our member towns. Our member towns, just to remind you, are Bath, Arousik, Georgetown, West Bath, and Woolwich. And anyone else outside of those towns do pay. One of the things I will just dispel that people have asked in the past, we do not automatically give cards to children that go to an RSU1 school if they do not live in our service area. So and that is something we've been really talking about, and we struggle with that because it's very important to us. Early literacy and information, that's what we're about, that's our mission, but we currently do not give cards. So if you've got a student that lives, as an example, in Phippsburg, but attends a school in Bath, they have to purchase a card for $85.
Is that a year?
It's a year, it's an annual.
And the summer residents would it renew, or you have to purchase it every year?
Every year you have to purchase the card. And again, we build a revenue, we have a revenue budget line for what we sort of expect based on what we've received in the past. It's not a large line in our budget. I think last year was about $4,000. So the revenue stream for non-resident cards is not large.
There, really quick, there just was a third part of that question
Yeah,
too.
please.
Do the other towns also fund this library card offset? So that's in relation to, the answer is no, because this one was specifically about Woolwich, but I didn't know if you had anything more you wanted to add.
No, we have a specific request amount that's based on a per capita. So all of the towns, so Aroustic, Georgetown, West Bath, and Woolwich are all assessed at the same per capita amount. But the difference is we base that on the number of residents in the town. That's how the number changes. We did change our bylaws this past year, and we are assessing Bath because of the geographic location and the additional economic development and other benefits to having a library in the specific town. Bath does pay a higher per capita amount than the smaller towns. It also helps us to keep our costs down for everyone.
You had a question in the back there.
She just answered it. That's exactly what I was gonna ask.
Okay. Great.
Any other follow-up questions on library cards and how they work? Let's have that other last question.
As a friend of the library, what are the most effective ways I can advocate for and communicate the value of Patten Free Library to my community? With upcoming town meetings where library funding will be discussed and voted on, what actions can community members take to help raise awareness, build support, and encourage others to recognize the library's impact?
That's an amazing question. It's when we all can, you want to take a first stab at it? Do you want,
You want to, yeah, I mean,
we
I
all
can.
can have our various, that's an amazing question.
Samantha, why don't you start?
Yeah, I'll start with just saying, I have a lot of conversations as a fundraiser with donors and patrons just about the library. And a woman came in recently asking, how do we let the non-card holders know that there's a special meeting or something's happening? And that is something that we do struggle with. And what I told her is tell your friends and neighbors. That's a word of mouth thing. You know, we do our best to get information out through our e-news, which you don't have to be a card holder to get. So very likely there's community members that get that. But we do really just strongly suggest getting out and talking to your friends and neighbors. Another way that we do it is we've upped our outreach in our various communities. So a lot of us will attend things in Georgetown and Woolwich and West Bath, and we talk to people there and say, oh, you don't have your library card? Well, we can sign you up right now and we can share this with you right now. So I think that's a twofold thing. We're really relying on our community members who are library lovers and supporters, and then we rely on ourselves to really get out there and be outside these four walls.
And I'll add to that is we have trustees representation from every single community that's a member. So we also have trustees and we have a corporator body. That's how we're organized. We actually are a corporation that is sort of overseeing the trustees. They elect new trustees at the annual corporator meeting. The trustees have the responsibility of the, overseeing the operations. Of course, I as director, then I'm hired by the trustees to carry out my work, and then of course staff. But so we also have our ambassadors and our stakeholders and our representatives in trustees. And we have a list of trustees on our website. So you can see who your representative in your community is as well. So they are our ambassadors to communicate.
I think I'm going to add another comment as a communicator to that question. The best way to advocate and be prepared for these kind of things is in any communication situation is meet people where they're at. So I know that community members have their own book clubs they have at their house, and I think it's important in those situations you're talking about books, bring up the library, talk about the Book a Librarian program that maybe you didn't know about. We have a lot of stats and information about the library to arm supporters if they go to these meetings. So if you need that, they're downloadable on the website, email a staff member and we can get it to you. And yeah, people are active online. It's all about meeting people where they already are doing things, where the library could be relevant. I know also, like, for example, my brother's a big brother, big sister person. He meets his little at the library. That's a good way to get stuff out here. So it's, if you ever have questions or need inspiration, like, you can have my email address too. Have to brainstorm. We had a question over there.
I suspect that it might be too late to provide this kind of information at the town meeting itself. I think it's hard for people to rethink their positions with new information at the meeting. So I'm hoping that there will be, that kind of outreach. And perhaps someone might know whether or not there's any outreach. Like I'm aware of a sort of community, the Woolwich Community Connection, a Facebook group. And I don't know if I might have been a part of it at one point, but after being hacked from a number of Facebook sites, I'm not there anymore. I can't, help that way. But I think that reaches out to a very diverse group of people. And one thing that was striking to me about the town meeting, which I also attended, was that how many, well, I can't say there how many, but there were several voices there that seemed to think of the library as it's just, a book lender. And when you list all the, and several people did get up and speak about the resources that you mentioned, though, I think that would be good to be able to get that out where people can think about it. And I was also thinking about other resources that I wanted to ask about. I know that when I come into the library, I've seen for a couple of years, you've had a nook set aside originally for, I think it was for teens with donated items for them. I think you used to do something over the holidays. I think there was some sort of donation for teenagers or school age kids or something like that. You have I don't know how often this happens, but the fresh fruits and vegetables table. A lot of people were expressing, I think, and I wanted to take this seriously, that they're concerned about the impact, of rising property taxes on their family budgets. And so as I thought about that, and I want to be, I actually have two questions about this. But one thing is that to really be able to drive home that, and I believe this, that I think that there is something the South Library offers for every individual in our community. There is something, and if you're especially if you're concerned about your budget, the entertainment opportunities, the fact that you can walk into this library and help yourself without asking anybody to, really great looking fruits and vegetables out there. But to know that this is really a tremendous community service, and I just hope that there's a way of being able to show that, whether it's, financial. I mean, the cost of not paying to have to take your family to Reed State Park, if that's one of the passes is. Yeah, I mean, I think that if people really start thinking about that, letting that, percolate in their minds, that could change some thinking about the value of this library too. And so I think I really believe every single person could find something that would make a difference for them beyond books. But
it's very valid that awareness and communicating more of the programs is something that could be improved. 100%.
It's like advertising, yeah.
And we would love your help, like we just said, tell your friends and neighbors. But if there's we're always open to suggestions about good places to advertise, whether it's hanging up a flyer or putting out an ad or a new newspaper publication starting up. We're always open to those. And the way we find out a lot about those is through community members like you. So tell one of us, tell somebody in the library. We'd love to hear about new things like that.
Or even like a community event. You've got a community event in your town. Let us know. We'll be there. We can. And now we have this great way where we have a mobile hotspot where we can give people cards as Samantha said, right on the spot. So we're really trying to build that.
Yes. So a couple of things. One is, I know Hannah and others have advertised far and wide for a lot of things. So I just want to put that out there that e-news and websites and flyers around town. And I believe you also send things to each of the towns in various places. And there are staff who go into the schools. So I mean, there's always room for improvement, but I just want to give some kudos and let you all know that there is actually a lot of marketing effort there. And then quickly, there are also services that do not require library cards. So that might be something to speak to, because I know sometimes people are asking about how many actually have cards, but that's that doesn't really cover the usage of the library. And then completely separate from that, so you can address these however you want. I just wanted to mention to you that when you were talking about, we do have board members and trustees from all the towns. And sometimes they're both representing the town and the library, and some might view that as a problem, except really should be viewed as a collaborative effort, as a benefit to both, because that person understands both. So it's really unfortunate that it's viewed negatively instead of for the positive that it really is. So any of you address any of that, however you want.
Yeah, maybe we start with the programs covered by library cards.
So the majority, almost 100% of our programs are free and open to anyone. There's only a few exceptions that do require either a library card or residents in our service area. Our summer reading program, to participate in the portion of the program where you can read books and do activities and earn prizes, that part, to sign up for that part, you are required to either have a library card or live in our service area or attend an RSU1 school. But to attend programs over the summer, you would not be required to have a card. The only other program I can think of that requires you to have a card or be in our service area is our annual writing contest. And that's open to teens and adults. And really the reason for that is to limit our pool a little bit, because we cannot handle everyone from all over the world entering our little writing contest. So we keep it, it's really in that case to keep it exclusive and special to our member communities. But other than that, you can always come to our programs. The cards really are for checking materials out, not for attending programs, not for using the library or the space or coming to book a librarian or ask a question.
And then just Hannah, if you could add one more thing, the homebound is also something that does require.
Yes, that one does require a library card. Yeah.
Well, and resident in a supporting municipality.
Yes, true. Yes, you can't have an out-of-state library card.
Or
Or even out of town. Yeah, for home delivery. Yeah.
Have you been tracking the age that is coming to the library? Are kids going down as far as how many
No.
children come? Or is it on an upswing, adults, numbers there?
I can talk about programming statistics for that, and then if you want to talk about the library as a whole. So when people come to programs, the only thing we track is how many people come to each program. So like for a children's program, we're getting the children and their parents for that. So we don't just get the number of children, because obviously the babies aren't coming to baby time by themselves. So it's important to get the whole group. But for our numbers for programs, they're going up. They're going way up, particularly in children's programs and adult programs. They've just been rising steadily. They dipped hugely through the pandemic. As you can imagine, we were closed, and then when we opened back up, we didn't really have programs. But since then, they've just been rising.
And then only add anecdotally what we see in the library every day is, of course, we do have programs specifically for teens. Some are from adult, some are multi-generational, but she's right. We've, in the last year, our programming, the number of in-house programs have increased 17%. We often do 2 and 3 programs every day in the library. So, but anecdotally, we notice there's certain times of the day in the mornings, or we have a new teen space, and we can see after school. That's a very busy space. So we do get people of all ages in the library. But it is some of it we don't, and again, we're not like the Y, where we don't card you when you come in, so we don't know exactly as far as demographics. But again, that's the outside of programming. It's more anecdotal. We do know how many items are checked out by our patrons that are under a certain age, because we have different categories of cards. And children, but again, adults are checking out children's materials as well. So
how do you track that? I mean, how old? So if a mother comes in and she's got a 5-year-old and a 7-year-old, they're all out under her card?
So we don't do family cards. So what we do is encourage everyone to have their own card. And from birth up to death, you can have a card. So, you know, a 2-month-old can their parent can get a card. So we really encourage that. It also helps with security and keeping track of who has what. So, but for somebody, a parent that's got a young child, they may opt to just have, you know, the card where the parent checks out for their child. But
Elizabeth, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, Leslie. Did you have anything about I know you run a circulation, and I'm sure we have those
Well,
numbers.
I would just say that we do have to every year report to the Maine State Library. They do a survey and they are always interested in the age differentiation just between children served and adults served. So we do have to track that. That's the only thing that but those numbers are for every library in the state, every year, public information.
And those have been going up.
And those have been going up, yep.
I know we have people with their hands up, so sir, are you first? And then the lady in blue.
Thanks for doing this, by the way. I really appreciate it. I'm curious about the piece that I think you mentioned that you don't have to have a card to participate in a lot of these programs. And I love that as a community member, but I also think that that could be flipped, right? Where it's like, well, then why would I bother getting a card if I don't lose access to anything? I'm paying for something I don't have access, I don't need access to. So I just want to put that out there. And I think the other piece of it, which I love the way you said, you have to meet people where they are. And I have to say, I think a lot of the folks who are probably either suspect or against supporting the library truly don't find any value. So the library is not meeting them where they're at. And so I guess there's a question at the end of this, which is, you know, instead of having the expectation that everyone come to this building to do things, is there a plan to go to Woolwich, to go to Arousing, to go to these communities and show up and perhaps do events that look different? You know, like if you guys were to sponsor a bass fishing event, people would be like, what? That's fantastic. So I think it's one of those questions of like, I know you guys are strapped for resources as it is. So the idea of like doing more events is probably not top of your priority list, but is that something you guys talk about beyond just programs that are geographically focused on the physical structure?
Short answer, yes. Yeah. We love getting out into the community. Our biggest, I guess, resource for that and our hurdle for that is just staff doing it. But last year we did attend, I don't know how many more events it was, but we did increase the number of events. Last year we focused on increasing the number of events that we attended that were already going on in the community. So we went to Woolwich Days, we went to West Bath. What did West Bath do?
We had a couple of things there, Historical Society, a holiday, we went to the Georgetown Fun Frolic, we've done. So we're trying to find out what these larger community events where we can go and have a presence.
So we're starting there with the goal of, doing exactly what you said. We'd love holding events outside of the library. So we're not there yet, but yeah.
How do you have your presence known?
At those events?
Yeah.
We do it in coordination with whoever the coordinator for the event is. And then we generally have a table like this. We've got a big awning with our name on it. We have lots of fun giveaways. We should. We got pens and lollipops, and we bring our calendars. Sometimes we'll bring a lawn game with us. We've given away books. Now that we have the hotspot, we're going to start making library cards at those events. So it's really just, usually we try to do one staff member and one volunteer if it's a trustee, or sometimes Carl's there, or a friend of the library. So people can ask things to the staff, ask things to the volunteers, and we're just there to kind of hang out and wait for people to come to us to ask all of their questions for the most part. Unless sometimes we do get asked for specific things. Like a number of us have judged the pumpkin contest at the Woolwich Central School, I did it one year. It was so fun. So sometimes people will reach out to ask for us to take a specific role, and sometimes we'll just be there. We call it tabling because we just set up a table and have our stuff available.
I'll just add one to, for having started to attend more of these, is it's really great when I'll have a trustee that comes with us that knows people community and will introduce us. So I might walk around with a trustee and they'll introduce me to the new select board member or somebody I don't know. And so that's another great thing. Anybody that's word of mouth or I know Suzanne, I know Debbie, just now then introducing me to people and so that's worked out.
Carl, you wanted to add?
I just want one event that is outreach, and it's proven to be very popular. Certainly a high profile is the annual or semi-annual or biannual spelling bee, which the teams come. Of course, there are a lot from schools, but other private people too. And these come from all throughout the served municipalities, and there's quite a bit of enthusiasm for that.
Yeah.
And publicity.
Here?
No, that's the way. That's to your point. It's in a location. Usually, it's in somewhere in Bath, but it's not located here because the groups that come are so large that we need a bigger space for it. And that's a way to publicize as well.
Before we move on, you had a first part to that question too, which was, I'm just gonna sum it up and tell me if this is right. What's the benefit to getting a library card, to paying for a library card if you're not going to check items out? Is that?
Well, maybe
Sort
more
of.
closely, the way you framed it was, you still have access to all these programs.
Yeah.
So what's the value of the card?
Yeah.
I can still go to these things.
Yeah, that's a great question.
Yeah, and I can answer that a little bit. So we consider us, we're a regional library. So, and as Anthony talked about the way we're funding, the benefit is that the more people that are involved, the more communities that are involved, the stronger the library. So if we get, somebody that's looking at it, well, I don't use the library, I don't need it. If a town pulls out, or if we don't get, it affects everybody in the community. So there's services we might not be able to provide, which affects everyone. So it's almost looking at it a little bit community-wide and not individually wide. Is this important for this town to have a community, for our students or kids to be able to get full access to materials? Again, as we've talked about, there's a lot of things you can walk in the door. We're not like the Y where you have to have a card membership just to get in, to get in. And that's our mission too, is not, we're there for everyone. So I mean, it's a great question, and I don't know that I'm answering it, but correct, but it really is more of a looking at it from a community perspective of, and not just an individual perspective.
But you still, if you don't have the card, you're not gonna be able to check out anything. No book, no CD, no DVD, no ebook, no hula hoop.
Right, no.
No lawn games, you can't, if you've got a parent who's bedbound and wants to, and if your town checks out, no more home delivery. So the things you have to have a card for and you have to participate for are valuable in themselves. And these other things are just great things for the communities as a whole, but things that won't be there if the library isn't supported by all of us.
Before one second, you had a question? You had your hand up earlier.
I did, with a couple things, I might have forgotten some. I think I had two questions that he asked. I guess I was gonna say this might be more in summary too, but, do you plan to speak at this meeting on the 24th?
Who were you asking?
The library?
We have a plan to have community members and supporters speak about the various topics we're talking about here. We have.
So you're not gonna give a presentation from the library standpoint?
Not specifically, but we're available to answer questions at the library. And then we're gonna have 3 community members and supporters share. We have a team from Morse who's sharing her experience with the library from the student team perspective. We have a community member who's gonna talk about programs used, kind of the ROI conversation of the library, as well as one other community member. And then Leslie will be present to answer any kind of specific financial questions.
Why wouldn't you make a presentation? Why would you not make a presentation? Kind of a summary presentation or a case, or presenting your case.
I'm happy to do it. We've just been strategizing about what the best approach, and because this is sort of unprecedented, I've been the director almost 17 years, but never had a second special meeting just on the library vote. So it's really, what's the best approach? And that's kind of what we've been talking about is it better to just stand up and one thing, Mary Ellen, who's been to every single meeting and since you've lived in Woolwich, we've done both things.
Yeah.
We've done it where we've gotten up immediately and started the conversation, and we've also just sat back and waited for questions. So
What's your response to the guy last time that stood up and said, well, I don't read and my 3 kids don't read, so I don't want the library? Is there a response to that other than what you gave, about the other stuff? Or how do you deal with that kind of, I don't use it, so.
right.
I think in that kid situation, our stance is that we want everyone to use the library. It's like, oh, well, why don't you come over and we can help you with that,
Right. So, right.
The library is an important, you guys can all say this too, but we all know this.
Meaning that's a vote. That's a vote.
Yeah, the other thing with, when dealing with kind of public affairs situations like this, focusing the effort to try to convince someone who is determined to be wrong is usually not the best use of everyone's energy. What we are focusing on is getting our supporters to be able to attend the meeting. How can 6 p.m. on a Wednesday is not a great time. How can we help community members have free up time to get there, to be informed of when it's happening, and then to make sure when we're there that all of the information presented is accurate. Yeah.
And strong.
Yes.
Just to add on to that, that's a good question. I would encourage you not to just wait for questions. I would encourage you to actively fact check and gently push back when things are floated that are either incorrect or misleading, or just uninformed. Because I think a lot of it is emotional. And I think a great response to that is, well, here's how this program actually is working. Here's how the funding is actually determined. Because I don't think that those who are adamantly opposed are interested in asking you questions. So.
Well, we had a question back there, ma'am.
Well, you asked the very thing and you said the very thing that I was gonna say.
Oh, sorry.
I think one thing to point out too is it's not just about reading. That is the primary focus of the library, but we have a lot of other stuff going on too. So you don't read, you know what? We've got lots of other things happening.
Starting back.
Yeah, I've heard a number of numbers floated around as far as the endowment fund. How much is the endowment fund now? What has it been historically over, say, the last 5 years?
It's, as of today, it's right around 9.5 million, give or take. Over the last 5 years, I'd have to think about that. I would say probably 5 years ago, it was probably around the $8 million mark, but that's a bit of a guesstimate. We could get a more exact figure. I just don't have that in front of me, but I think that's probably close. What do you think?
Probably maybe 7.5 or 8, because it's volatile enough that we'd have to really look at that. We do keep track. Just don't know off the top of our head, but yeah.
Kind of piggybacking off that, my impression at the meeting was, so people were talking about, I just need my taxes to go down. And I don't think there were specific numbers suggested, as in, well, if we don't fund the library as a resident, then my taxes will go down $40 versus $400. And I do think people are hoping and praying it's $400, but I think it's more likely $40. So I'm wondering if there's some actual numbers we can float around. And Leslie, actually, I only came to that town meeting because you sent that email out, and I loved how you put in there, I think you said something about residents are paying the cost of 1 hardcover book or 2 paperback books. And for those of you that know me, I have 2 children downstairs, that I would be bankrupt if I had to buy the books day to day. Karen can attest to.
Tell me your name, so
I'm Helen Smart Pearl, we
Okay.
spoke on the phone.
Yes, okay.
And so I just was curious, like, I do think going back to emotions versus facts, if I know I'm fighting over $40 versus $400, that puts it in a different perspective for me. So I didn't know if that was, and I understand it's based on our property value, and I don't even know if everybody knows their property value, but like, if we could give a range of Woolwich property values, and those of us that don't live on the ocean, we can guess it's not, you know.
Mary Ellen Casmer, who's a Woolwich resident, former trustee, former board chair, and so very familiar with the library. But if you want to share that number that we discussed.
Yes, lots of people are asking that question, not surprisingly. Now, as you just said, it's true, there are variables, so it's not like you can have somebody walk up to the desk at the town office and have them tell them, okay, it's this many dollars and this many cents. But one of the interesting things David Miller told us was, okay, we know everything that goes into our property taxes. It's the school, the RSU1, and that's over 5 million. The county, that's over $1 million. And then I added up everything on the warrant, including the library, and not including things that they took out of fund carryovers and stuff. And that's not quite 3 million. So you add it all up, it's about $9 million. So $9 million is the total amount that Woolwich residents are going to be expected to pay in property taxes. Okay, so $80,000 is what Patten Free Library is asking. You divide $80,000 by $9 million and you get 0.0088. In other words, 9 cents on the dollar. So if you take, we don't have our property tax bills yet for the coming year, but go ahead and look at your property tax bill from last year, move the decimal point over two places, and that's going to at least be a ballpark. So if your property taxes last year were $3,000, then it's going to be somewhere in the range of $30 is what you pay for the library. But you know, I do understand that there's variables, you know, some people have property homeowners exemption, some people don't, there's other stuff. I understand the hesitation to not get specific with people, but I do think, just as you were saying, you really, it's important to give people some vague ballpark idea, whether you're talking about tens of dollars or hundreds of dollars. It makes a real difference.
If we're gonna have to pay for library cards as residents, if we have to pull out, then most of the residents will be paying $85.
Right,
a year
for the card.
for the card. So it's,
That was part two of my question before. When you were talking about a card, is it everybody in the household would have to pay then for a card?
Right, we don't do family cards, everybody would need their
So
own individual card.
So that would be per person in each household that we would have to pay, not $85.
Well, that is $400 if you have for your family.
So what ends up happening is a lot of those families, like some of our people from Pittsburgh, they just buy the one card and they share it among all their family members because they cannot afford to get for everybody. But it is more ideal. We definitely always encourage that the kids also get to have their own library cards because I take this off. I don't know if you can hear me well yet. So because it is very exciting for kids to be able to have their own card. Some of them are quite proud to come up and present their card that is theirs in their name. So obviously that is much more ideal. So
But $85 per kid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Expensive.
So that's why it's like, it's better if you're still in the community.
That was one of the questions that I had written down that I wanted to, or observation I was going to make too, that I understood how the library, its funding process, its way of determining, you know, what the cost would be. But I didn't understand what that would mean in terms of the town allocating the cost of the $80,000 across, you know, the budgets. And I happened to be at the town office a week ago, and I did ask the town manager there, I think that's who it was, you know, like, how does that work? And started hearing about mill rates and, yeah. But I thought the same thing, at least a range, like an average, you know, I think that would make, because I think right now it just seems like the $80,000 just seems so enormous when you think of it.
Yeah.
Just in that.
How, one way we describe it too is that if you just take the number of residents, and how we come up with our request is a per capita. So for this coming up year, we're asking, well, I should know this off the top of my head. Let me get my number here, but I just want to make sure I'm correct. $26.11, that's per person. That's an average. Again, it's gonna, as Mary Ellen said, it's gonna vary, but the per capita amount we're asking for from the not Bath, but the other towns is $26.11. The state average for library service for per capita for residents who are supported with a library of similar size, and this was data from 2 years ago because it was the latest data we have, is $39 a person. So we are, because we have this endowment, we are able to keep our costs, and because of all the wonderful fundraising that Samantha does, we're able to keep our costs down way below still what most Maine residents pay for library service. So I think that's something to remember. We work very, very hard. The endowment is built up from donors that support the work that the library has, done over the years. So it's all of the fundraising that we do is what's helped us to build that. Our endowment, as well as an annual fund every year, which with fundraising, I think provides with the annual fund and the Friends, it's almost 20% of our operating every year comes from the fundraising. So we can't make it a better deal than we are. I mean, some of these other communities are paying much more per capita. We're doing absolutely everything that we can to keep the costs down. And I think we're doing a really good job. It's just inflation and things that are completely out of our control.
Just a comment, Leslie. That's such an important figure. I mean, not only what you said, Mary Ellen, about what effect taxes may have, but if people hear it's $25 a person, I mean, you can't take your kids out to McDonald's for $25. And that's such a concrete figure if you're prepared with that.
We have the Children's Museum, free passes there. You take your kids to the Children's Museum, you've spent that in a day. I mean, imagine the savings for our community. It's tremendous.
Another question back here?
I did want to point out, first of all, it's actually 50% now for those Children's Museum, but that was because of the Children's Museum that changed it. But it's still a heck of a deal. And I know that we have also a lot of grants that have covered a lot of things. And I wanted to clarify too, when I was talking about, kids getting their own cards, that was as part of encouraging me encouraging why it's better for the town to be part of the library. Not that I'm saying if you're not part of the library that you should go get the card for everybody just for that reason alone. But certainly, for sure. I feel like I had something else to say and I've lost it.
Well, Karen, I just want to reinforce, I think it makes our kids feel like community members, like right from early. Yeah. I really admire, I didn't grow up around here. I really admire Morse and the homecoming and the vibe around here, how much people love this community. And I think that starts early.
Yeah, I was thinking that at the town meeting, there was a comment that the library is charging Woolwich for students to have cards and when they can get it from the school. Mm-hmm. And so that they're kind of double dipping as far as like asking for money from Woolwich and the school for the kids' library cards. So I don't know if anybody else remembers that. It was kind of a strange comment, but
yeah, so just again to reiterate, we don't, the RSU one, we don't receive any money for students for cards, and of course, as we know, in the summer, the students don't have access to the school library. So this library is even more important for students in the summer.
So if it comes up again.
Yeah.
I was surprised, a person that I know said to me, I mentioned I go to the library all the time. And she says, oh, I don't. She says, I don't, only smart people. What? Smart. And so I think a lot of people with these children who are saying they can get their kids in school, if they haven't been exposed to libraries, which we know many haven't. They don't know how. So important to let the services out there and let people know, not just books, there's a lot of stuff going on. I mean, even with your bookmobile that delivers, slap a sign on it saying library, so that when they drive around the roads, they see that. So it's all getting this, you need to get the
Great
data out
idea.
there and that you're in the communities and you're moving around.
Absolutely.
It's a great idea.
That's a great idea. Yeah,
Big fan of car magnets.
It's a volunteer car that drive, but we're gonna stick it right on there. I love that idea. Thank you.
Have a good night.
I'm curious, on your website, I think I saw a pie chart on what the cost breakdowns are, and it mentioned 70% of personnel. Is the details of that shown as far as how many members, how many people are paid, and what their payment amounts are in that personnel breakdown?
Anthony, is you a question or Liz?
I don't think we have that public. Do we?
So there are certain things, so the Maine State Library has a statistics, we have submit statistics every year, and it asks us categories like how much does your children's librarian get paid? So there are categories of types of staff members, and that information is available in there as well. But the personnel costs also include health insurance, payroll taxes, social security, not security, Medicare. We now have to pay paid family medical leave. So there's a lot of other things that are included in there. But if you want to find out particular what people make, that is available from this Maine State Library, and we can certainly provide the link to where those statistics are available. In any organization, I will say personnel costs are the most expensive thing. That is true. That is and our amount that we're spending is sort of right in line with what we expect.
I think we could add too that staffing is very lean here.
Very
5 full-time employees or near full-time employees, 18 or so part-time employees, and then life-saving to have a whole host of volunteers.
Like
So-
how many volunteers?
Believe around 100 because we include the Friends. The Friends are not their own separate 501c3. They're part of the library. So they operate that store down at the base of the stairs, and that's all volunteer run. And then we have volunteers that Elizabeth manages for the day-to-day.
So-
So yeah, probably around
Say that
100.
again, 5 full-time, only have 5 full-time.
Four of those are 40 hours and one is 30.
We are not
Now
paying.
that's
Okay,
Just for the record.
Five
Volunteers.
they're full-time. Okay.
Yeah, we have 5 full-time, and then trustees are not paid positions. Those are all volunteers.
Often donors.
Yeah, we do have a very, we have a
Definitely
very,
often
very
donors.
And where do proceeds from the library bookstore go to?
The proceeds from the bookstore.
Oh, all of the proceeds for the bookstore come directly to the library and our operations. And even on top of that, the Friends make with all of the book sales, they make an additional contribution at the beginning of our fiscal year on top. And so the Friends, all of their activities cover 5% of our operating. It's pretty significant.
How soon do you know each year how much, what the percentage of increase is gonna be for each town? What does that decide?
Do you want to talk about the budget process a little bit, Anthony?
Yeah, that's so it's pretty much starts as soon as it finishes. As far as when we know, I would say probably by September, we probably are pretty maybe.
Probably not. Our budget process starts in September. Like Anthony said, we started it but it takes us several draft iterations and discussions with the board. We probably have a budget that's ready to go for towns.
Right, but that's not the question. The
Okay.
question is, when do we know what we're thinking of the numbers? When we know what we're thinking of the numbers is around September, October. That's not a final, but that's kind of a rough idea. The budget wouldn't be finished in it'll be in draft form. We have a real good draft probably around that November timeframe.
When do the towns know?
That would be once the board has approved and looked at it, then we would submit it.
So that's when, December, January, February?
It's usually early February,
So it's a couple of months before.
Yeah.
several months.
Yeah.
But it's a good thing to know about the process is that usually a couple of people from the library sit down with the select board or the finance committee of the select board, depending on the town, in January or February, bringing all those materials, line item budget, so that you can get a lot of feedback then. And then the towns, so the towns know what they're looking at, they can ask questions. They often do ask questions, and we get feedback, or since they week, because I don't do it anymore. But then, so that's all ready then in time for the towns to prepare their warrants. But there's another thing that keeps coming up at Woolwich Town Meeting, that somehow Bath controls the budget. That's not true, it's never been true. Well, I shouldn't say never been true, maybe 50 years ago it was true, I don't know. But certainly not in my knowledge, which stretches back at least 12 years. That's not the way it works. And I think maybe it would be hard for people to understand why it doesn't work that way, because they'd think, wow, Bath is a big town, the library's right in Bath. You actually prepare a budget without clearing it with Bath. But part of the reason why it's done that way is that Bath, it's a city, it has more personnel running the city. So they have a better idea of what other cities and towns pay for their libraries. So they're much in a better position to be well aware that because of all this fundraising, because of the endowment, the Patten Free Library is a huge bargain. So they don't worry too much about what the amount is going to be. They know what the formula is, and so when the budget process is done, they get notified, and they get a meeting just like anybody else. And in fact, the first municipality to approve or disapprove the assessment is Woolwich. It's not Bath, it's Woolwich. I don't know if you saw it in the paper. Bath didn't approve their budget until last week. Well, I mean, neither has Woolwich, but we would have ordinarily done it weeks ahead of Bath.
So did everybody get a 12% increase? All the different towns?
Bath got like 22%.
Okay, so it varies.
No, it doesn't. As I said earlier, Aroustic, Georgetown, West Bath, and Woolwich all have the same assessment amount. The increase, the only variable is the number of residents, but the per capita amount is the same. So it's the 12%. Bath has a weighted higher, and theirs is a 22% increase. So Bath does have a higher percent increase for the last 2 years.
So I saw your presentation to the Bath City Council, and it included an amphitheater outside at the end of the building. Can you tell us how that would reflect on towns' appropriations and whatnot?
That's a great question. So that goes back to our capital campaign. So we have been talking with the city for about 1.5 years about the specific project of the campaign. One thing to know is the library does not own the park, the fountain, the parking lot, anything. We that all belongs to the city, the gazebo. So anything that we do in the park or any ideas we have are absolutely in partnership with the city. This is part of the campaign. So what they're in their budget, we have asked them to help with the campaign and to fund this particular project. It is using TIF funds, so it is not using taxpayers' individual residents' money for this particular project. So our request to the city of Bath for their 22% increase is strictly for the regular yearly operations that is separate from this additional the Library Park Amphitheater. And that is only for Bath because of that it's a shared amenity that the residents, all the towns will benefit from, but it's located right here in Bath. So it is a separate fund, and it does not increase at the tax, property taxes as a result.
I just think you remember a really big point that may come up in the village meeting, which is people may see the improvements that the library has been doing and think that their tax dollars are paying for that. And we know that that's not the case, but that distinction is really important to make at these town meetings, that they're just, whatever they're paying is only paying for library services, not for improvements, not for, solar panels, not for HVAC, not for any of that.
Yes.
I'm gonna use an analogy because I'm not sure how to say this. You hear about, of course, like the cost of living versus what people actually make, and how the cost of living rises and what people make just does not keep up with that. And I think, I'm not sure if I remember correctly, but as far as like the library and the cost and things increasing versus the ask of the towns, has that always kept up, or was there maybe, costs have increased a lot over the years without increasing the cost very much of the towns? Or if you understand what I'm saying?
Exactly. And I mean, the other people can answer that too, but we've done different things. So when I've been the director 16 years, and as I look back, we have of how municipal funding and what our requests have been to the towns over the years. We have always asked for very modest increases. Sometimes there were a few years when I first started where the fear was that we might lose a town, so we kept our funding flat for 4 years. And that has not only an adverse effect on, so we're that far behind now. So it is because of, some of it is because we really want to do everything we can to keep the costs down to the town. But in doing so, it can actually have an adverse effect where we're trying to catch up now. That's some of what's happened. And so, so we, I'm not sure what else to say, but you're right. I mean, it's challenging.
We have about time for one more question, if there is any.
I'll actually send a question. I would be careful who you send to the meeting on Wednesday, and I would choose carefully.
We are absolutely thinking about that.
Really.
I'm gonna start, I missed the first part of what you said.
I would be very careful who you chose to represent you at the town meeting next week. Because I think I just recommend that you be very careful who goes. Because I think some of the questions and the attitudes could be difficult.
It's a good point. We are thinking very carefully about who's going, how we are training everyone who speaks, and trying to anticipate what will come up, what the attitude in the room is going to be. So yes, that's a good point. Thank you. Yep.
I came in late, so apologize if this is already addressed, but there was a lot of chatter for a while on Facebook group about clearly a lack of understanding about how endowments work.
Yep.
So I'm just wondering if that's going to be part of.
It is going to be addressed within the comments made from the library or supporters who are speaking.
Great.
Yep. Thank you. Right.
It seems like a presentation would be super helpful, just as far as just a broad overview of all of the benefits, all of the services that the library provides, and just some basic budget information. I don't know. It just seems like going there, just waiting for questions I think people may be coming to the meeting expecting to learn something from the library about all of these issues that came up at the meeting.
We're not going to wait for just questions. We do have planned speakers going, and then working with the selectmen as far as the process of the meeting goes, like what we're allowed to do.
Okay.
But yeah, good point. Yeah. All right. I think any other burning questions? All right, Leslie, you want to close out?
Oh, yeah. All right. Let me see. I want to make sure I cover any So I really, first of all, the most important thing that I really want to thank you all for being here tonight and everyone on Zoom. So I want to make sure I covered everything. We will, we recorded this, so it will be available after if you'd like to see it again or encourage people that weren't able to attend to listen. And so be on the lookout for recap materials. Do we have a sign up? Is it?
It's on that back channel.
Can somebody post the link to the meeting
Yep.
recording on that Facebook group?
Yeah, we can.
Yeah, we'll make sure that the link to this recording. If you have any other questions, stay for a minute afterward. We can answer or make sure that we get your email so that we can provide you with specific information. And just thank you all, and thank you to staff for everyone and thank you to Kate for helping us this evening. So really appreciate it.
Each of our cards back there, if you have
Thank you.
specific questions about specific things that any of us talked about.
Great night all.
Thank you.
Thank you.